welcome to the BEASTwriter family where social media engagement is encouraged. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they're going to do with their first round pick. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the analytics as to why I think they're going to target a certain player and why that player is going to be so valuable to this team moving forward. Now, before we go ahead and get started, I just want to say mahalo to each and every one of you for the love and support and subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. Also, in the description box, you'll see all my social media outlets on there. So all the respective platforms that I'm on, I went ahead and I included that in every description box of every YouTube channel, whether it be live or a static video like this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're not going to waste any more time. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they're going to do with the 20th overall pick in this upcoming draft. All right, so I know you guys like these tickers. Let me just go ahead and pull these up. All right, make sure that ticker's up. All right, so you see on the bottom here, we're talking about salary cap health, right? And as it currently stands, the Pittsburgh Steelers are $31.2 million head above water, which is good. I think that's a average number when you look at that number in retrospect to the landscape of the entire NFL. And when you compare that to relatively how healthy that is, it's really a good number that you can kind of gauge moving forward because you can restructure deals and this and that. But I like that $31.2 million number. I like what Kevin Colbert has done. I like what Omar Khan has done. And credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers for getting them in position to go ahead and make some sound plays, whether it be in free agency or having flexibility in gaining more draft capital or even trading up for a coveted prospect. All right, so again, I think the problem we have to start with when it comes to Pittsburgh Steelers is who is going to be their quarterback one. We know that Big Ben Roethlisberger is going to be retiring, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no question about it. So who's going to take his spot? We don't believe in Mason Rudolph. I think that experiment has awfully failed. I don't think it's going to be Dwayne Haskins. I think that awfully failed. So I think you have to kind of look at it as, with the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are built today, I think you can win with a stopgap, bridge gap quarterback, kind of like a game manager, like Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, I'm saying Jimmy G would be a nice pickup in the silver and black, if you will. Not silver and black, because that's the Raiders. I hope you guys caught that. The black and yellow. And I always talk about this because when it comes to the Raiders and the Steelers and the rivalry there, for all you Raiders fans, you guys know what I'm talking about with the whole Franco Harris thing and then everything in between. And I talked about that on other podcasts that I was on, but getting back to the specific one, not silver and black, obviously, the black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Pittsburgh Steelers, the terrible towels. Why not them, right? They could be an interesting spot for him, and he'd be a likely destination to where that would be a primary fit. They're in a win now situation. They have a very strong defensive front seven. I talked about this since covering the team for Sports Illustrated back in 2019. They have a strong rushing attack led by Najee Harris, my draft crush from last year. And so when you put that all together, Jimmy G doesn't have to do too much. And then you look at the outside weapons that they have and then they've invested in. You look at guys like Chase Claypool, who they got in the second round. You look at Deontay Johnson, who they got in the third round, right? And the late Daryl Drake was really high on Deontay Johnson, and you can see why. The guy is just a baller. Now, can he stay healthy? That's another question, but you have threats on the outside, and then you also have a security blanket, just like you would have in George Kittle with the San Francisco 49ers and Pat Freiermuth coming out of Iowa as a rookie second-round pick. All right, so there's a lot of similarities in place for the Pittsburgh Steelers to thrive if you have Jimmy Garoppolo behind center or under center, if you will. So let's go ahead and talk about that, all right? So let's touch base on that. If it's not Jimmy G, I don't think they're going to go and draft a quarterback with that 20th overall pick. Why? Simple. Because there's no round one talented quarterback, a clear-cut first-round pick that you can actually put your name to it and be like, you know what, that guy's a round one pick. I mean, Malik Willis, really, out of Liberty? How about local product Kenny Pickett? No, I don't know. It's one of these. So a few things we need to look at when talking about what the Steelers are going to do with that 20th overall pick. Let me go ahead and bring up the ticker here. first and foremost, right? Anytime I run my mock drafts, of course, we don't know what's going on with free agency yet. So this is just a preliminary mock draft, as I like to call it, right? Mock draft 1.0, if you will. So a few things we need to look at. One is the draft position. They hold the 20th overall pick. But in order to understand the dynamics of how that 20th overall pick is actually going to play in their favor based on their strengths and weaknesses and what their team needs are and what other teams are doing in front of them based on tendencies and biases, which I tweeted out earlier, and my man Jim Trotter liked it. You have to know the dynamics of what every team is thinking. You can't just plug and play a player there just saying, oh, he's a scheme fit. He's a good player and a scheme fit. He'd be a nice... No, man. It doesn't work that way, bro. No. That's why when you watch mock drafts, odds are mine's more accurate or just as accurate as the other people you watch on TV. Because you have to do the legwork on it. You have to talk to people inside those NFL circles. And more importantly, you have to know the dynamics of all 32 NFL teams. Not just the one you're covering or the one that you like. All right. So, again... let's go ahead and backtrack a little bit. For those who don't know, Kevin Colbert became the Steelers GM back in 2010, right? And history tells us, like I said, I'm pretty spot on when it comes to Kevin Colbert's first round picks. I hit on the last two, including predicting in my pre-draft prediction that the Steelers would trade up from number 20 and move up for an inside linebacker, whether it be Devin White or, in this case, Devin Bush. And it ended up being Devin Bush. All right. Back in 2019, and I doubled down on those gains. And as you guys know, my draft crush around this time, when ESPN went on and said it's going to be Landon Dickerson, I said, no. It's going to be Najee Harris. It's going to be Najee Harris, Mel Kiper, and Todd McShay. And here we are predicting this, 4 months in advance. And here we are sitting here. And I said it was going to be Najee Harris to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he's on the board, that's going to be my spot. That I never moved off that spot and hit on 2 for 2. So here we are in 2022. Can I be 3 for 3? We're going to find out. Because if you remember, they didn't have a first round pick because of that Minkah Fitzpatrick trade with the Miami Dolphins. Which begs the question, what the heck is Stephen Ross doing? Anyways, let's get back to the draft position. All right. So they hold the 20th overall pick. This is GM Kevin Colbert's last draft. Like I said, we don't know if Omar Khan's going to be taking the reins over. We don't know if it's going to be Hunt that's taking over, the director of college scouting. We don't know if those two guys are going to mirror each other and work off each other. And one takes ahead of the draft and one takes the lead on the pro player personnel side. And then they kind of come together and grips on how they want to prioritize the draft, free agency, going into the... I don't know what's going on. But what I do know is the Pittsburgh Steelers are always going to have what Coach T says, the standard is the standard. So I am fairly confident that the Steelers will, in great ownership, will get this going and keep this management seamless. A seamless transition, if you will, as Kevin Colbert rides into the sunset. But again, the last time they held the 20th overall pick was back in 2019, and they have the 20th overall pick again. And I think they're going to trade up. I do. I think Mike needs going to strike twice, and they're going to trade up for a player and do it all again. Because if you look at past behavior and you want to look at to what's going to happen in the future, you have to delve into the past. Look at Kevin Colbert has drafted 2 first-round draft picks that ended up being offensive linemen since becoming the team's GM back in 2010. The first one was in 2010, his first draft as getting the title of GM. He drafted Maurkice Pouncey. And what did he do? Arguably a Hall of Fame career. All right. The next great Steelers offensive center. All right. And then they got another interior offensive lineman, the latest being Stanford product, local farm boy, David Castro. All right. Number 24 overall. So when you put those two together, he's really good at hitting on offensive linemen and drafting in the first round. He's 2 for 2. I think he's going to do it again. And just like he broke into the GM role with an offensive center because he needed one, he got Maurkice Pouncey. I think he's going to leave his stamp by double downing on those gains and going after offensive center Tyler Linderbaum from the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I will tell you why. All right. This is a fun one, guys. I like this. So who is Tyler Linderbaum? Let me make sure the tickers are up. All right, who is Tyler Linderbaum? Well, let's backtrack a little bit and see why Tyler Linderbaum will be a perfect fit. And before anyone says, and all you see is, oh, we have Kendrick Green. Well, how's that going for you guys? Yeah, sure, he has a nasty mean streak, but how's that going for you guys? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. All right? Even for a rookie, he struggled. What I would do is I would go ahead and draft Tyler Linderbaum because, one, he's going to be the best player available and the cream of the crop of that interior offensive line class when it comes to the center position. And secondly, he fits the scheme in that power-based run scheme, and he would be a nice asset to that offensive line for Najee Harris, who gets hit routinely behind the line of scrimmage. How many times do you see Kendrick Green get walked back, get thrown off his grass at the point of attack? I mean, come on. Let's keep it 100 here. I'm not saying Kendrick Green's not going to be good. I'm just going to say move him to guard. All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. But here we are. The Steelers' Achilles heels is the offensive line. All right, and Colbert has always been one to build the teams from the inside out, not the outside in. An ideology I always agreed with. So if this is the case, I can't help but think they target Tyler Linderbaum. But sitting here at number 20, they're not going to be able to get his services. Why? Because what does Tyler Linderbaum bring to the table? Again, he's tough, physical, and fundamentally sound at the point of attack. And like I said, he's power-based, right? He's based for a power-based run scheme. So who else plays in the AFC North that just right ahead of them? Well, it's the Baltimore Ravens. Well, they would be a perfect scenario in getting a guy like Tyler Linderbaum. Then you can team him up with maybe a Ben Cleveland, right? And then you have a fountain of youth that you can work with moving forward. All right? So why do I say Tyler Linderbaum? Well, one, again, we go back to the Pat Freiermuth second round pick that I hit on that one in the second round. I want to talk about Beast Receipt, 2 for 2 last year on the top 2 picks for the Steelers. I said Najee Harris and said Pat Freiermuth in the second. Iowa product. Here's another one, Iowa product. Why not? The question remains, how far up do the Pittsburgh Steelers have to move up in order to catapult the Baltimore Ravens in order to get a guy like Tyler Linderbaum? Because if you remember, and I run the analytics on it, if you look at the salary cap and what they have in the pro personnel side, because that's what you have to do. You have to wear 2 different caps. You have to run the director of college scouting cap and the pro player personnel cap. And then the pro player personnel side says, hey man, we only have so much money to go around. We're going to have to get rid of some players and we're not going to re-up others. So what's going to happen there? Right? And so when you peel back layers of the onion to get to the core, as I always like to say, we're going to talk about this. All right? Because free agency has yet to take place. The Steelers have to move up in the 12 to 14 range. All right? That's a real likely scenario. I don't see Tyler Linderbaum going into the top 10 for the simple reason that since the 1970 merger, no offensive center was drafted in the top 10. So if history is going to repeat itself, which it does, Tyler Linderbaum not going in the top 10, bro. All right? So again, you look at the Vikings, you look at the Browns, and you look at the Ravens, 2 AFC North rivals, I might add, who are drafting right ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In fact, I would even say a lap ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, really, right? Because they draft 12, 13, and 14 range, whereas the Pittsburgh Steelers draft at 20. So they're going to have to move up a few spots in order to secure Tyler Linderbaum's services. And if you peel back layers of the onion to get to the core, as I always like to say, let's go ahead and keep it 100, right? Well, who do the Vikings have, right? Vikings have Garrett Bradbury. All right, who do the Browns have? J.C. Treader. All right, both those guys are playing in the last year of their contract years. So they're going to be re-upping next year. If you're a GM, you're going to want to have an insurance policy in case you can't re-sign these guys, or if you're already thinking that they're going to be gone after the season anyways. Furthermore, let's go ahead and look at the other team, the Baltimore Ravens. Well, Bradley Bozeman, the offensive center, is a free agent this year. So there's no guarantee he's going to be coming back with Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, if you guys know. Who's Eric DeCosta? It's the Ravens GM. All right? So with that being said, you can see the needs when it comes to the AFC North and the offensive center position. And based on how I see the mock drafts shaping up right now without free agency taking place and salary cap cuts and surprise cap cuts and so forth, salary cap casualties, whatever you want to call it, this is how I see it playing out. I think Tyler Linderbaum would be a hot spot in the 12 to 15 range. 12 to 14 to be exact. 12 to 14 to be exact, all right? And based on my analytics, right, I believe Colbert wants to leave his mark with a Pro Bowl talented interior offensive lineman and give last year's running back first round pick, Najee Harris, a real opportunity to shine and thrive over the next 4 to 5 years, depending on if the team picks up his 5th year option, if Linderbaum does play well. All right. Because the Steelers offense runs through Najee. It doesn't matter if it's Jimmy Garoppolo. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Schmo. It doesn't matter if it's me. It doesn't really matter. It runs through Najee Harris. All right. We all know that. They're going back to their roots, and I really like that style. Tough, physical, no BS type of a running game. All right. Rushing attack. And that's going to open up the passing game for Pat Freiermuth, and then also Deontay Johnson on those drag routes, and then Chase Claypool down the field off play action pass. Boom. Holla at your boy. But with that being said, what is the asking price, right? So we have to talk about this, right? What is the asking price, right, to move up into that 12 to 14 range? Well, let's look at the comparables. It's like the real estate market, right? So in 2012, to move up 3 spots to number 12, Philadelphia gave up number 15, a 4th round pick, number 114, and a 6th round pick, number 172, to the Seattle Seahawks. All right. Just 9 years later in 2021, to move up 9 spots to number 14 for Elijah Vera Tucker, the New York Jets gave up the number 23rd overall pick, a 3rd round pick, number 66, and a 3rd round pick, number 86. In return, the Jets also got a 4th round pick, number 143, from the Minnesota Vikings. All right. And when you put that all together, I think that's what the compensation is likely going to be. If you look at what the Steelers have right now, they hold the 20th overall pick and they hold some other draft capital. But again, I don't think that they have, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they have 2 third-round picks. I think they have just a 3rd round pick, number 84. Let me just double check, but they do. All right. They only have 1 3rd round pick, number 84. So I see the Steelers moving up, and they have to move up, all right? So we're talking about how much draft capital, let's put the ticker here. How much draft capital do Steelers have to yield? For moving up 6 to 8 spots in that 12 to 14 range, Steelers need to yield their 1st round pick, which is 20th overall, the number 84 overall pick in the 3rd round, and then a future 2023 3rd round pick. That's what I see the compensation as, because that's what the Jets gave up in order to move up so many slots to go up and get Elijah Vera Tucker. And again, a reinforcement for Zach Wilson. I can see the same thing happening in Pittsburgh, but this time it's going to be for Najee Harris. All right. You need something. You need to get. There's fans always say, "Oh, well, that's too much." Well, look, you have to give up something to gain something, right? This draft isn't very deep as in years past, and at the position of need, the value of adding the top interior offensive center in this year's draft class is well worth the investment, giving up those selections. Look, every draft has its own identity, just like every NFL season has its own identity, and a round 3 pick in 1 year may not be the same relevance of a round 3 pick in the following year. So you really have to look at the personnel, the strengths, the weaknesses, and forecasting the future prospects in future years to come as we look to that 2 to 3 year outlook. It's like when you go to a startup company, right? It's like if you're a startup company and you go to some angel investors or VCs and they want to see your 5-year outlook. You better have a game plan, bro. You better have a game plan, because if you don't have a game plan, you're like, well, all I know is the instant gratification. But what about the long-term gains? That's what I'm talking about. So again, when you put 2 and 2 together, and we talk about instant gratification versus long-term gains, Linderbaum is the cream of the crop, right? And despite drafting Kendrick Green, like I said, and I know he's been playing center, coming out of the Fighting Illini, I get it, but he's not it. I would rather kick him to offensive guard, teaming him up on the other side with the Raging Cajun Kevin Dotson, who I really like. And the last Raging Cajun to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers was Ike Charlton. I would like those 2 goons up front, and then have Tyler Linderbaum on the middle. And now you have a fountain of youth to work with, because also you have blindside left tackle Dan Moore. Another year. And again, if you remember what Jim Harbaugh always says, the growth from a player is usually from year 1 to year 2. That's where you're going to see the most significant growth of the player. From there, you can kind of pick and choose, like, hey man, this guy has it, or this guy is too inconsistent, he doesn't. Right? So when you put that all together, I think it's important that you solidify the offensive line for whoever's behind center. But more importantly, if you're going to run through Najee Harris, and if you're going to get through the year with Najee Harris, then you better add some goons up front, some hog mollies, some Dave Gettleman guys, if you will, and enforce your will down in the trenches in that AFC North. Because let's face it, if you don't, the Baltimore Ravens will, or the Cleveland Browns will. They'll pick up those guys and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Kind of like a 10-point swing that we saw in the NFC Championship game, where someone misses a field goal, then someone scores a touchdown. All right, so That's all I got to say about that. And then you can let Trey Turner walk. I like Trey Turner, but he's not the Pro Bowl player that he once was. I like his nastiness. I like his veteran leadership in the locker room, but hey, I don't mind getting those guys that I just mentioned, and those guys can now gel together, form some kind of chemistry for years to come. Well, that'll be it for this live stream. I hope you liked what I had to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Also, just putting up this here, drop your comments. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys like my analysis, if you don't like my analysis, give it a thumbs up either way. And tell me, Steelers fans, tell me, BWF, what your thoughts are on my pick when it comes to GM Kevin Colbert going off into the sunset, just the way he came in as GM, and going after an offensive center by trading up for Tyler Linderbaum, the Iowa product. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night. BEASTwriter out.